Going through the page 293, 294 assignment here. So number 8. 8 less than the product of a number n and 1/5 is no more than 95. They've got the boxes here to kind of guide us a little bit. We wouldn't have to have been given any of this, so just keep that in mind. So that's why I've kind of circled and underlined different phrases here. So if we look at the part with the variable first, it says the product of a number n and 1/5. So that would be 1/5 n. And then the first part, it says 8 less than that. So 8 less than that, we're going to subtract 8. And then is no more than 95 means less than or equal to. So that would be our inequality. And I know we could just fill in some blanks here, but make sure you're able to come up with that inequality without having any guidelines as well. And then for solving the inequality, first we're trying to get this variable term by itself. They're subtracting, so we can add 8 on both sides of the inequality, which is 103 like the book has over here. Again, we want to show each step of what we're doing though, in case we would accidentally add wrong or something. And just regardless, you got to show all your work to get full credit. And then the last step, you could say they're multiplying by 1/5, so we can divide by 1/5. When we go to divide by 1/5, dividing by a fraction, once again, is keep change reciprocal. And if you multiply, that would be 515 over 1, which is the same as 515. Make sure on this last step whether our sign needs to switch or not. We divided by 1/5. That's a positive number, so the sign's not going to change. Remember, if you multiply or divide by a negative number on that last step, then the inequality sign changes directions. So number 9, 7 more than the quotient of a number b and 45 is greater than 5. So once again, if we just ignore the boxes, think about how you would do this without the boxes being there. I'm going to start with the part with the variable, the quotient of a number b and 45. So we've talked about before a way to help you remember that. You can think about DQ, division, quotient. So the quotient of b and 45 means those are being divided. And normally we'll just write that as a fraction. We want 7 more than that, so I'm going to put plus 7 after it. In this problem, since we're adding, the order doesn't technically matter, but if we're consistent on how we work the problems, it'll make it easier for you to always get the right answers. Like this was 7 more than, I put it afterwards. If it was 7 less than, I also put it afterwards, minus 7. And in that case, it does matter what the order is because I'm subtracting. And is greater than 5. Okay, so that would be my inequality. Again, yes, we could fill in the blanks here. And then to solve that, we're going to try to get that variable term by itself first. They're adding 7, so we can subtract 7 on both sides of the inequality. When you do that, 5 minus 7, if you have $5, you spend $7, you're going to owe somebody $2. And then you can say they're dividing, so we can multiply both sides of the inequality by 45. So when you do that, cancels on the left side, the right side, that would be negative 90. And once again, look at what you did here. Last step, you multiplied by 45. Again, that's a positive number. So the sign's going to stay the same. B is greater than negative 90. Number 10, they want us to solve the inequalities and then compare them. So just going to put this other one over to the side here so I can look at them a little easier. So the first inequality, again, trying to get that variable part by itself. They're adding 6, so we can subtract 6 on both sides of the inequality. And then they're multiplying, so we can divide by 2. And once again, the sign's going to stay the same, so x is less than 2. For part B, they're adding, so we'd have to subtract 22 on both sides. 18 minus 22, that'd be negative 4. And then they're multiplying, so you have to divide by negative 2. And there's the first one we've had this assignment where we have to switch. We divided by a negative, so sign changes from less than to greater than. Negative divided by negative is a positive, and that would be a positive 2. So we got x is greater than 2. The other one we had x is less than 2. So now we look at the other part C here. So correct comparison. Either they have some common solutions, they have one common solution, they have no common solutions, or they have the same solutions. Well, they don't have the same solutions. What you can do is just graph these both on the same number line and kind of look at what's happening here. So the first one, we've got x is less than 2. Less than 2 would be an open circle at 2 going to the left. Greater than 2 would be an open circle at 2 going to the right. If you look at that, there's no overlap at all between those two. Even if one of them had greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, there still would not be any overlap there. If they were both had, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, if they both had the or equal to part, there would be one common solution at 2. But in this case, the answer would be C. They have no common solutions. Number 11, Talia has a daily budget of $94 for a car rental. Write and solve an inequality to find the greatest distance Talia can drive each day while staying within her budget. So you can see over by the picture here, it's $30 a day plus 20 cents per mile. So we've got basically the car rental plus the mileage. Those are our two costs. Those two added together gives us our total costs. And we want to stay in our budget here of $94. Staying within budget means the total cost is going to be less than or equal to $94. So the car cost is $30. We're talking about here a daily budget of $94. So even though it says $30 per day, we're just going to put $30. We don't have to have a variable on that part. And then it's 20 cents a mile. So 20 cents times however many miles. Okay. And this one really, before we even set this up, we should probably, you can do it once you get to this point, as long as you make sure you do it. Define a variable for this problem. So defining the variable, we could just say something like, let M represent the number of miles driven. So once we've done that, we need to solve this inequality. First thing, we're going to try to get that variable part by itself. So they are adding, or it's a positive 30 out in front here, so we need to subtract 30 on both sides. And then they're multiplying, so we need to divide. When you divide, you might think we should be getting a bigger number here, but we're dividing by a decimal that's smaller than 1, so it's actually going to get bigger. So that should be 320. So m is less than or equal to 320. In other words, the most she could go is 320 miles. Okay. Again, once you get an answer, don't just leave it and say, there's my answer. Make sure you just write a sentence to explain what your answer means. Number 12, a manager needs to rope off a rectangular section for a private party. Okay, first thing when I see that on this problem, I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle. Okay, you might think, well, I don't need that. It doesn't hurt anything to draw it. It might help you even. Length of the section must be 7.6 meters. So length is usually the bigger dimension, longer dimension. And the manager can use no more than 28 meters of rope. What inequality would you use to find the possible width W of the roped off section? Okay, so there's W. And this is where drawing this picture is going to help us out. On a rectangle, we know the opposite sides are the same length. So really perimeter is what we're looking at here, but even if you forget that word, forget what's going on exactly, we can still get this thing figured out. Okay, so if you do it this way, we've got those four sides added together, and they can use no more than 28 meters of rope. So those four sides added together needs to be less than or equal to 28. Before we try to solve this inequality, we can add the like terms together. So remember the W's, we can put ones in front of that. That would be 2W. And then these two constants we can add together would be 15 and 2/10. The question technically just says what inequality could you use to find the width. So it doesn't look like they're technically asking us to solve this. If we were asked to solve it, so you could either have the original inequality that we wrote, or a little bit better maybe would be to write that simplified one we just did. But anyway, they're adding, we could subtract on both sides. When you add or subtract decimals, make sure your decimal points are lined up. And then they're multiplying, so we can divide. So the width would be less than or equal to 6.4 meters. And what you could do is just try, that'd be the maximum. So you could try, if we had 7 and 6/10, 7 and 6/10, 6 and 4/10, 6 and 4/10, how much does that give us all together? Well, there's 10, and 10 is 20, 14, 16, 22, 28. So that's right at 28 meters. That's the maximum. So, even if it didn't ask us to solve that, if we had time, that'd be a good idea to actually solve that out, and then you can check to see if that works or not. Number 14, a pool can hold 850 gallons. It now has 598 gallons of water and is being filled at the rate shown. So the rate shown is 15.75 gallons per minute. So the question is, how many more minutes M can water continue to flow before it overflows, right? And solve an inequality. All right, so this time we've got 598 gallons right now, and then it's going up by 15.75 gallons per minute. So plus 15.75 gallons times however many minutes. And we want to see before it can overflow. So this is how much water we have. So the water we have in the pool needs to be then less than or equal to 850 gallons. So that would be our inequality to start out with. And then once we've written that, to solve that, we need to get rid of the 598 so we can subtract that on both sides. They're multiplying so we can divide. And it wouldn't have to be such nice answers for us, but usually they will give you pretty nice stuff a lot of times. So that comes out to be 16. So M is less than or equal to 16. So the water could continue to flow for 16 more minutes before it overflows. And once again, we can write out a sentence there to make it clear that we know what our answer means. Number 15, they've got a rectangle drawn out for us. First thing they want us to do, write and solve an inequality to find the values for x for which the perimeter is less than 120. So we talked about perimeter earlier is the distance all the way around the rectangle. So we want that to be less than 120. So we've got an x, we've got an x plus 4, we've got an x, we've got an x plus 4, and we want that to be less than 120. So the x's, you can put 1s in front of those, and then we can go ahead and combine our like terms since they're on the same side of the inequality. So that'd be 4x plus 8 is less than 120. They're adding so we can subtract 8. They're multiplying so we can divide by 4. So x is less than 28 would be our answer for part A. Part B, it says, based on your answer to part A, are there any values that can be eliminated from the solution set? So if you think about it, if we say less than 28, if we graphed that, technically we're saying an open circle at 28 going to the left. But the deal is we can't have side length that's either negative or 0. So that would be kind of our restriction for part B. Okay, so realistically, that's what's going on with that part. And then if we look at part number 16, rather, they want us to write and solve that inequality. So here we are without boxes. 4/7 times a number minus 8.5 is no more than 11.5. So 4/7 times a number, so 4/7 x, or if you want to use a different letter, minus 8.5 is no more than, means less than or equal to 11.5. So that'd be our inequality to start with. They're subtracting, so we need to add 8.5 on both sides. That'd be right at 20. And then they're multiplying, so we can divide both sides by 4/7. So dividing, keep, change reciprocal. Technically, we could reduce factors, the 20 and the 4, we could reduce both of those by 4. Otherwise, if you multiply straight across, you'll get 140 divided by 4. Which would be 35. So x is less than or equal to 35 would be the answer to our inequality.